Trapped in your body, or so much more free already than we can ever understand. Whether you hear this as words with your mind or body as vibration, living the dream or enslaved in a nightmare. Whether it seems anybody might care or not, this life is raw, it's a lie, and I want you to know that we see you in there. I see you. So we do what we need to in order to digest the things we go through. I don't know if you can even understand this, but for many of us, life's just a collection of emotions we go through. All more close someday to a little less broken mind state. So I'll wait, Jacob, maybe you can take it to the sunrise. Until 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 the sunrise.
Hello, hello, everybody. Welcome. Good afternoon. Everyone, my name is James Kim, and I am the Executive Director of BEAT, Bridging Education and Art Together. It is so wonderful to have you all here with us today for the first Arts and the Autism and the Arts panel discussion. Please be advised that a closed caption version of this video will be made available on Friday for those of you with hearing impairments. But before we get started, I just want to give you a little background information about BEAT Global and in particular the BEAT Rockers program. So BEAT, Bridging Education and Arts Together, is a nonprofit organization based here in New York City. For the past decade or so, we create a variety of music, art, culture programs, all rooted in hip hop. But today, I want to talk about the BEAT Rockers program. This program started back in 2009 at the Lavelle School for the Blind, and we're still there to this day. So we've been going 11 years strong. And BEAT Rockers is a beatboxing, music, self-expression program for kids with disabilities, many of whom are on the autism spectrum as well. So why are we here? You know, and part of the reason why we wanted to hold this panel discussion is because when all of the shelter-in-place mandates went into effect, we were super concerned about the disability community and them being left behind and not having remote learning plans. We're also concerned about resources. So we went out and we reached out to our partners to see what gaps in service existed and ways that we can continue to support the disability community. And along the way, we picked up, and there's been a lot of media attention, we picked up a lot of really important things. I think first and foremost is the fact that many families have resources. In fact, many families are almost overwhelmed by resources. The issue is really having the space, the time, or the necessary training to engage in these resources. So for example, you might have a lot of lesson plans and remote learning opportunities, but you may not have Wi-Fi. Or if you have Wi-Fi, you may not have a device. Or if you have Wi-Fi and a device, you may not have like a parent or a caretaker to help facilitate those lessons. Also, before the pandemic, keep in mind that students had one-to-one aids, they had occupational speech therapy, they had professional counseling. This was all mostly administered within schools. So here we are in this new era, and parents are just going to, are having to sort of adapt without having those resources available to them, without having to go into very expensive, private options. So to quote Peg Kinzel, she's the policy director for statewide parent advocacy network. She quotes, "Even though mom and dad may be home, they are not special education teachers, speech or language pathologists, or occupational therapists." So we as an organization have worked with participants with multiple disabilities for over a decade, but we are not the experts. So in the spirit of community justice, we are facilitating this conversation to hear tips from advocates and their closest supporters about ways that they've been able to integrate arts at home. Like, what are some of the routines? How can we continue to make sure that art is continually present, especially when we are in our living rooms and not in our classrooms? So we are so excited to have an incredible group of panelists today. Before we get started, I just want to make a really quick introduction to all of our panelists. First and foremost, we have Emanuel Frowner. He is an autistic self-advocate and an incredible actor. We have Jonathon Epstein. He's a transition developer at AHRC, New York City's Adult Safe Services. We have Constance Van Rolleghem. She's the parent and chair of the steering committee of the Museum, Arts, and Culture Access Consortium, MAC Access for short. And we have Jayson Valles and his mother. Jayson is a self-advocate and artist. He's a portrait artist, landscape artist, also an incredible singer. And his mother, Gloria Pizzaro, who is a social worker for the Department of Education. Please, guys, let's give it up for our incredible panelists today. So I want to bring our attention to our first panelist. His name is, again, Emanuel Frowner. Emanuel is an autistic self-advocate. He's an incredible actor. He works as a research assistant at Mount Sinai. Welcome, Emanuel. Thank you so much for being here with us today.
Yes. Oh, sorry. Yes. It's good to be here too.
Nice. It's really nice to see you, and I can hear you pretty well. So let's just get to it. You know, we're talking about having to be at home these days, and we really want to learn, and we want to hear from you. You know, how are you integrating art into your daily routine? Like, is there one acting activity, for example, that you've been able to do at home?
Yes. Since early April, I've been doing the collab sessions, and we start out with a dance party where we use various parts of our bodies to dance, you know, and that's fun. And then we welcome each other. And then people like share screens of work of art, and then we have to like interpret what emotions they might be showing, and there are really no right or wrong answers, and
Beautiful.
It's a lot of fun.
That's great. And how often are you doing, and for those of the listeners who are not familiar with CoLab, CoLab is an organization, it's short for Creative Opportunities Without Limits and Boundaries, and they are a theater group. Tell us a little bit about these CoLab Zoom sessions. How often are you engaging in it? Is it a pretty regular part of your week?
Yes. The CoLab Zoom sessions are on Wednesdays from 5 to 5:45, and on Saturdays from 2 to 2:45.
Got it. And you're a consistent participant in these online Zoom sessions twice a week?
Yes.
And how are you finding it? I mean, is it really helping in terms of for you to stay creative and to connect with other people? You know, describe to us, you know, how these workshop sessions are impacting you, hopefully in a really positive and creative way.
Yeah. It's just fun because I see, I have a chance to see a few of my friends sometimes, and we also, like I said, go to breakout groups, and we see a work of art and we interpret it. But we also come up with our own like skits sometimes, and that's fun. And
yes.
It really helps you to think.
I love that. And I'm assuming that when you go to the workshops, there are a lot of the same participants that you can catch up with and, you know, sort of re-engage with.
Sometimes we don't really get to talk to each other much, even though we see each other. You know? But either way, it's fine though, you know?
Yeah, I'm glad that that it's available. And we talked a little bit about this before the call. Obviously, you are participating in the calls twice a week. What other activities are you doing when you're not in the calls? Are there other CoLab, you know, activities that they encourage you to do at home? What, you know, can you share some of the things that you're doing outside of the workshop?
Well, I don't really get. Well, sometimes I get to watch the how-to videos on YouTube, but I don't get a chance to do a few other things because I'm doing a lot else, and still, and in terms of those things, in terms of like those moves, in terms of what I do in terms of art, I cut my own hair, you know, to make it look good, and I try to trim my mustache so that, in a way so that it doesn't go below my lip line.
Yeah. I love that. I feel like cutting hair and doing fun stuff with your facial hair, etc. Those can also be viewed as works of art. Is there any advice that you can give other people with autism or supporters, like what, you know, any advice in addition to, you know, cutting hair and the classes, or is there anything else that you could advise or, you know, share?
Oh, well, very quickly, I like to save posts of my favorite celebrities like Katy Perry, Salma Hayek, and Gabrielle Union on Instagram, and I have been. I also sometimes play videos on YouTube of old video games I used to play, and that's fun, and it brings back great memories. And in terms of advice I would give, do what in terms of the people themselves, um, I would say like do activities in which you feel comfortable with and which you actually like doing, and don't feel ashamed to not do certain things, you know, because of like a time limit or what have you. And also I would say in terms of in terms of registering for a collab class, in terms of collab, I would have to register and pick a class that would be suitable for them.
Yes. And can anybody register for collab? Do you have to be a part of the community or anything like that, or can anybody just, if they're interested, can anybody register?
Well, they would have to be interested, and they have to see that they're eligible for it, you know?
Okay. Yeah.
And that's all I'm going to say about that.
Okay. Well, and we'll also post information about collab. I think it's a really fantastic resource. Thank you so much for sharing your experiences and, you know, the impact that these online classes are having. So we'll make sure to post it on our social media to make sure that you know where to go. So you just have to make sure that you can qualify. And again, they are offered twice a week. Emanuel, thank you so much for sharing a little bit about what it is that you're doing to keep arts into your daily routine. Yeah, absolutely. Wish you the best of luck with all of your creative and acting endeavors. Please stick around. We want to make sure that you are available because we'll be having a quick Q&A after we interview all of our panelists. So Emanuel, give it up for Emanuel. Thank you so much for participating. Yes.
You're welcome.
So moving right along, I'm really excited to introduce our next panelist. His name is Jonathon Epstein. He is the Transition Director at AHRC, which is one of Beat's newest programming partners. Hey, and AHRC, for those of you who do not know, it is a service provider for the disability community. We have been engaging with them here in New York City. Jonathon, welcome to the panel. Hope you're doing well. Thank you so much for joining us today. How are you?
I'm good. Thank you so much for having me. It's an honor to be here.
Yes. We have so many questions for you, especially for somebody who is coming from a service providing and organizational perspective. Kudos to all of the work that you and AHRC have been doing over the years. Again, we've had a chance to meet a lot of your participants, and again, what an incredible group and what an incredible organization. Thank you so much for all of your work and all your commitment. So let's just get to it. You know, there's a lot of art activities that are available online, and so many of them require modifications for people with autism and other disabilities. You know, so what has AHRC done, you know, specifically as a service provider? What have you guys done to meet those needs in providing those services at home?
Yeah, so to start with, we were thinking about, let's focus on the people who don't have technology to start with. And so we we either created new materials and got those materials, so like curriculum, arts curriculum for example, and we took all the art supplies from all of our different programs. We have 31 different programs throughout the city. We got all the art supplies from those physical locations, and we brought them to people's homes who needed them.
Wow.
And in terms of the physical printable curriculum that we provided, as you mentioned before, like not everyone who's going to be utilizing these materials is a teaching artist, right? You know, if it's a parent or direct support provider, or you know, they're not necessarily a teaching artist. So, and we also wanted to make the materials accessible for people to do on their own. So
sure.
A lot of visuals, really clean and clear and easy to use. But we also created, so we either found stuff online and edited it to make sure that it's focused on serving adults, or whoever age group is that we were providing it to, and made it sure that like it was clean and clear. So we provided web content, and we established regular live sessions with artists that we support already know. So they're existing teaching artists, their existing staff, management. And so we had regular live sessions and a calendar of that, of all kinds. Yeah. And
got it.
Yeah.
Was there any particular form of art? I know there's a lot of visual art with all of and congratulations of being able to deliver those materials to the families themselves. I feel like that is one of the most direct when it comes to what are we doing? Well, we're going to deliver these materials so you guys have the opportunity and the tools to make art at home. So kudos on that. I think that's just fantastic. And with regards to all of the different kinds of activities, has there been a particular form of art that's been emerging in terms of what participants like to do at home? Maybe singing, maybe or maybe, is it writing poetry? Is it making visual art? Is there any particular form of art that you find to be the most popular with the participants at AHRC?
So it's all very person-centered. We're doing all types of different art forms with people, and it's all based on who they are. And we had already done, a lot of people that we support, artists that we support, we already knew really well. So we tried to provide people with things based on their specific interest areas. So, I mean, for an example, like I already knew that we had people interested in who identified as rap artists, identified as DJs, and as we were developing programming with you, those are the people who we had in mind to join the beatboxing classes, and they loved the first session, and they're really excited for the second session that's happening today. So like, but yeah, I think so as we were starting out and establishing sessions, it was with people who knew each other. So they could support each other, and with teaching artists who already knew them. So like in terms of the content that they brought, it was like stuff that they had previously been doing. And also like we're thinking about like in terms of what the lessons are, we want to make sure that everyone's included. So we think about only doing curriculum that involves materials that people are likely to have at home, for instance.
Sure. And I was picking up on two things. It's really about consistency, the ability to, sort of see and expect to meet your peers again. And to Emanuel's point, to really delivering something that the students and the participants really have a vested interest in already, where their motivation is to, actively participate in the things that they love, And I'm also really thrilled to hear how the beatboxing program is going with the participants, just in you talking. And again, what's really interesting is like in this new world, everything is kind of like no one's really done anything before. Everything is sort of like a pilot, you know what I mean? I feel like as you were talking, maybe there is some way that we can also engage in those parts. Maybe we could do like an online karaoke night or something like that, where people can participate in singing and have, more consistency in that. But ultimately, and I think we can all attest to this, let's have fun, let's have fun. And I think that's part of what art is really all about. It's really about creative self-expression, the ability to collaborate with your peers, the ability to see them with some consistency and really engage in doing something that you truly love to do anyway, So I think that's really incredible advice, Jonathon. Thank you so much. We'll also post all the information about AHRC. And again, if there are any resources that you would like to share with this community, please let us know. We'd love to post that and make that available for all of our listeners and viewers as well. And thank you so much, Jonathon, for your time on this panel. And again, stick around for the Q&A. I'm sure there's going to be some questions for you as well.
Thank you so much.
Thank you. Moving along to our next panelist. Our next guest is Constance Van Rolleghem. Constance is a visual artist. She's also the chair of the steering committee of the Museum Arts and Culture Access Consortium, MAC Access, and the parent of a child with autism. Welcome, Constance. Thank you so much for being here today with us. How are you?
I'm fine. Thank you, James, and thank you for having me over here.
Absolutely. Really an honor to have you join us. And I feel like, you're in a really unique position as being a parent with a child with autism, also such a strong advocate and supporter with the work that you're doing on the steering committee and MAC Access. But I just really wanted to, again, because we're talking about all of this at home activity and being engaged, or the opportunity to stay engaged in the arts, are you doing any arts-based activities with your daughter at home these days?
Yeah, I'm trying to. I mean, as you said, we, at the beginning when all this first started, MAC did the same thing. We started on the website pages with a lot of activities and different links to activities and all that. And now, as you said, there's so many activities, and as a parent, I found that quite overwhelming too. So I try to, schedule some activities, see what my daughter like to do, and pretty much keep with what we were doing before. So her schedule seems the same. So she still has some school. And then she goes to collab too and creativity at the most. So we follow those, group that we're following before. We haven't gone too much in what I thought at the beginning I was going to do, like go to, Paris and then see all the exhibition there and all that. But that's not happening. There's no time at all to cope with everybody's life and time. So, but we're doing okay. We just stabilized pretty much everything and get some nice stuff going on. So
it sounds like you've been able to not only have structure and routine, but what I'm also picking up on is how it's really, I feel like you're doing the best job you can to keep that routine as normal as possible, right? You're trying to incorporate, what life was like before the shutdown. And I feel from what you're saying that you're incorporating a lot of those sort of daily activities and routines in this new era. Do you have any advice that you can give other people with autism or their caregivers for how they can also incorporate some of these arts into their daily routine?
Well, I think it's really making a routine. I think the first thing we did is just, figure out who was going to be able to do remote class and things like that, and doing that. I think my biggest concern is also the facilitation of what we have to do. And I think that's maybe a very tricky position where parents are in, where they have to help the young adult child to do something, or either by verbally helping them or telling them to do something, or doing hand over hand like I have to do with my daughter. And that require in different ways time, but it also require something that you have to be able to be motivated by the activity you're going to do with the person you're going to facilitate, but you also have to be able to retract yourself and not be yourself too much, because then you take the activity away from that person. And I think that's something that, as parents, we do sometimes, but not as much at school. They're supposed to do, but they don't do too. And I think that's a very, very central point to people with disability. And for myself, it's very much hands over hand, because that's what my daughter needs. But a facilitation can just be the way you use your voice. It's an incorporated link that is very important. And I think this situation is really putting that at the center of what we do. It's like we have to link one person to an activity, and the activity to the person. And that part, I think, is a very big learning curve for me, and I think a lot of parents, and how to be able to do that. So that's more what I would say, I wouldn't say struggling, but I try to do. And what I found the most efficient way of doing it is to prepare myself as much as possible, so I don't have to deal with too many surprise. And then allowing that preparation to free you from the liberty you need to have in that activity, especially when it's an art activity. You want to be free and let the person you're going to help to be very creative. So but you have to be prepared for that, because if you're already tense, you don't really know what tool you're going to use and how you're going to adapt. Then you're going to put that to the person you're going to do the activity, and that makes the activity not a very relaxing activity, and definitely not creative, because you impose your feeling on that person. So I found that's the hardest. And it's not new. It's always been, I think every parents know that somewhere in the line. But then at the same time, you do have to be motivated by it too, because if you're not motivated, then you're not going to go very far with your, helping. So anyway, that's how I feel.
I think there's a lot of so many parents out there who can connect with what you're saying. And, it's really about the ability to wear many different hats and to be very fluid, but to understand, what mode do I have to be in? Because maybe I have to stop being mom in this situation, and I can just be somebody who is just encouraging creativity in all its forms, and no matter what they may look like, So it's really about having an incredible amount of intentionality, and I think self-awareness, and also being able to fluidly, kind of wear these different hats and have these different sorts of responsibilities. I think that's really incredible advice, really understand who you are trying to be in that moment, and what is it that you're trying to do or facilitate with your son or daughter. I think that's really powerful. I think people are just not used to just being in one mode, and I think, and that's really what's emerging here, is your ability to be really fluid and to be really self-aware of what mode that you have to be in. Again, if you need to not be so restrictive and let your daughter just be expressive, however that might look like, then you have to be okay with that. That's really incredible advice, and I think that's very powerful and also very relatable to what's happening right now. And I think we also keep going back to this point about how the activity has to be really, I think, interesting for your son or daughter, whoever is participating. And I think that's a really sort of good segue in terms of understanding better, how do you prepare, and how do you continue to make the learning exciting? Are there any things you're doing to continue to motivate and to make it exciting outside of our own intrinsic interest?
Well, I really, it's just, you know, read I think a good activity is an activity who has a goal and that you understand the goal. And the goal doesn't have to be too complicated. And that allows you to maybe create around that goal. I mean, by creating, I mean, adapting that goal to what you're going to be able to do with the person you are with. And so I think when I look at like, even like Collab has lesson plan for the week and they give you different things to do. And there is a lot of, fluidity in it. So in some ways you can do exactly what they do, or you can change it in on that. And I think that's very important. But in the same time, you have a goal. You kind of know where you want to go. So you're not all lost, like, oh, I'm going to have to decide and I have to create over the creation. I think what we facilitators, so we have to be motivated, but not take over. So I think that's the hard part to all that. And then in art, frankly, you know, art is the tool where I think anybody can be. You can create any way you want to. There is no restriction to where you want to go. But so there is, as a facilitator, parent, or as a person who's going to do, you're kind of free. Just, you know, you might have a goal in the activity, but then just go and enjoy it and be motivated by it. So for my daughter, I try as much I do have to be motivated by it somehow, because if I'm not motivated, I don't know how I'm going to do it. And since I have to adapt a lot of things, it's really kind of, turns around me. And sometimes it's unfortunate, but that's how it is, and always been. But I think motivation is one of the big things. Is just like, I don't think it's worth pushing, especially for art. I mean, there's places where we have to push ourselves, to learn things. But in art, I really think that creativity is there, and it's frightening too. So you need construction. The creativity just doesn't pop out like that. I think it needs to build up. So, we need to do that, but it's also, you need to free it. So it's a very ambiguous place to be, but in the same time, it allows you freedom. I feel like it's like almost like you need to be having a structure to be able to free yourself. So it just kind of gives you a sense of, okay, you need a little bit of steps so you can just go. And I found that in my artwork is the same way. I just feel like it helps to have goals and kind of a guideline a little bit. And that guideline just allows you to just free yourself to what you want to do. So that's how I try to, do the activity with my daughter.
I really love that. And thank you so much for sharing that advice. And I do feel like that is, it's a struggle that I think a lot of artists, or maybe all artists, face, is that you don't want to engage in the art if it starts feeling like a job or responsibility. You want to create the structure and the motivation for that expression to emerge, but you're not expecting things to get created like a homework assignment, so there's different intentionalities, and it's almost like to be loose, but to have structure enough to grow, right? So I think, again, that's really the struggle in terms of where a lot of artists have to face that down. Thank you so much for sharing that. I feel like that's going to be such an incredible insight for parents, like really think about, what are we doing here? This isn't an assignment, the work isn't a directive, it's really about how that can come out of you. So again, I think be aware of what it is that you're doing, be aware of what it is that you're facilitating. I guess at the end of the day, not all subjects are the same, and you want art to be able to thrive, So thank you so much for sharing. Constance, again, please stick around for a Q&A. Again, thank you so much.
Thank you. Thanks.
So I want to move on to our final guest. I want to introduce Jayson Valles and his mother, Gloria Pizzaro. Jayson is an autistic self-advocate. He's an incredible visual artist. He's an incredible singer. And his mom is also incredible. She works as a social worker for the Department of Education. Welcome, Jayson and Gloria.
Hi. Well, hello.
How are you guys today?
Well, I'm doing okay.
Good. Thank you so much for joining our panel. Really excited to talk with you guys. So let's just start with what you guys are doing at home. Is there any art-based activity that you guys are doing at home on the regular?
On Zoom on the regular? Well, most likely I go to, let me see. hotel respite meeting chat. I go to RTech meeting chat. And also on Saturday, I go to Zoom Saturday night party to have fun. And Sunday strip Zoom meeting chat on Sundays.
Wow.
What I do. And then I meetings.
Yeah,
Wow.
so Jason's schedule, you know, with the art is 3 times a week that he does the art. He used to do it at the studio, but now that we're here because of the you know, the quarantine, so he's been doing some of the projects, you know, at home, which is great through the computer.
Are a lot of those Zoom classes, are those also collab classes? Are they different organizations? Is it stuff you're finding online? Can you guys talk a little bit about the Zoom classes that you have been doing?
Yeah, the Zoom classes, different people or the same agency?
Actually, I go to Zoom art class. That's the only class that I go to.
The art programs that he's in is through the AHRC, so that's what he's been doing. You know, most of the programs that he's involved with are with that organization, you know, which is really wonderful. So, like I said, you know, I was a little worried when the quarantine, because Jayson has his routine besides working. So, you know, that we're working, some of us are working from home, or people are not working. So what was, you know, that I love about the agency, first of all, they called to find out how he was doing, if he needed it, you know, if he needed anything, because at that, you know, to be honest, I was sick, you know, with the virus at home. So he was really, for the first 15 days on his own in the room, and we were watching him. But what was wonderful about the agency was that they called, you know, is everything okay? Which, you know, thank God, I really appreciate it. But then Jason's routine with the art, you know, went from being in the studio to being at home. So he still has his 3 days a week, the art. And then on the weekend, like he said, he has recreation. And, you know, he usually sketches at home and he paints. These are some of the paintings that he's done.
Yeah, those are art painting.
Yeah.
Yeah,
it's really beautiful.
You know, he's sketching. So then, like I said, you know, the routine is really great because when he has the Zoom classes, you know, he's able to interact with his peers that he doesn't see because he's not in the agency. He sees them, you know, through the Zoom classes, and he's still doing the artwork. In between, too, you know, I tell the parents too that what I do in between, that now that we're here together and I'm able to, you know, I'm well now, you know, to be with him and, you know, at the home.
I also do one-on-one with a job coach on Zoom meeting chat about the job.
Oh, great.
Yeah.
Oh, that's fantastic.
That's from what? From
service. That's AHRC.
Yeah. So like I said, go ahead.
I just wanted to acknowledge and give it up for the parents. You know, you guys at home, you know, are doing so much, in addition to working, etc. Is there any advice, Mom, that you might be able to share for caregivers or other parents, how, you know, their student or whoever they're taking care of can be more engaged? Is there any advice that you can give to other parents?
Well, like I said, depending, you know, because each child is unique, depending on the routine that your child has or whatever he likes, because I'm one parent that I like to break up a lot of those routines for Jay, because if I let him, he'll be all day in the Zoom or you know, doing, you know, the same thing. So like I said, I like to break it up a little bit, and then he'll have his art program, but at the same time, now that I'm here, I take the opportunity to do a lot of life skills that he likes to, like, and that includes cooking, using the stove, you know, doing several things that he enjoys too besides the art.
I'll be on live while I'm cooking.
Oh, I love that. I love that.
And when I was singing in my room, performing, I do that on live. That too. On Instagram, actually no, YouTube and Facebook.
Yeah. So as you see, you know, they each have their own little unique way of things that they like, either it's art, painting, or singing, you know, whatever they like. You know, I let Jayson do his routine, but at the same time, in between times, you know, I tell him, look, now, you know, either we're going to go out in the yard and get a little sun so you could get a little, you know, air, or, you know, if that's not possible, like I said, you work on life skills at home so that you can, you know, teach them, you know, either we're going to clean the room or we're going to do some laundry. And like I said, it's funny because out of my 3 kids, Jayson has a passion for cooking. And I said, well, that's good because everybody has to learn how to cook. So then we involved in that a lot, you know.
Oh my God, I love that.
And then baking. So now I said, because he went live with the cooking when I wasn't here. I was on vacation. So
Because
I said,
my mother's been watching the cooking channel, and I've been seeing it every time.
no, but at the same time, I said, wait a minute, you have to cook and use that stove carefully, you know. So I said, let me take time to do that. But in between, the sketches and the parents who like art, I was saying before earlier that, you know, some of these, you know, materials can be expensive, but usually I buy them when they're on sale. And if I see paint might be like $1.50, you know, I buy a couple of paints, you know, and the canvas when it's on sale. And, you know, those are the things we do. And Jason's pretty, you know, involved in his art. He loves that since he was a child.
And I do
Jason,
Super Saturday.
I just want to acknowledge the fact that you actually did do all the paintings there in the background. I think the people were curious.
Oh, yeah.
Yes.
People can see that. It's right there.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's the Art Tech program with AHRC.
Right. And Gloria, I just wanted to sort of reiterate, because I feel like there was so many gems in what you just shared. And it's really about, yes, routine is important, but it's also important to break up that routine with other activities. And again, I think the central point of so much of this conversation is really identifying and understanding like what the participant and what your son or daughter really like to do, and then making those opportunities available. And then I think what I love what you did also is because, hey, we're all at home. Now here's an opportunity to really hone some of those life skills like cooking, which is also an art form, mind you, you know what I mean? And I think the opportunity to bond around preparing food and making a meal for the family and then all sitting down and having the opportunity to eat that together. I feel like with all of the horror stories around COVID, I feel like that opportunity to engage with your family, to eat and to cook and to do all those activities is so important. And again, I think cooking in and of itself is such a powerful art form. I love hearing those stories about how you guys are also doing it together, which I think will also create, you know, more of a bond. And I want to get down to also some of the activities that are available online. Again, there's so many. And I think what's unfortunate is that a lot of them require some sort of modification in order to engage in these activities. Jayson, how have you modified activities so they suit your needs? You know.
The what?
How you've done the activities so that you could, you know, still do what you like. Yeah.
Oh, how do I do that? Well, I just do what I had to do because I enjoy it. Just like I said to everybody, the art is my life. And I like to share it with everybody. I had to do.
Then he likes to party, you know, like with the, and I was like, wow, how are we gonna do that? Because you can't leave.
On weekends.
But then with the agency, he's able to do it, and he dresses up and everything, and I like that. And I was like, wow, that, like I said, this is one way. Because I was thinking my own of making a schedule. You know, Jayson, let's look, you know, online and see some of the museums are open, and we could actually go online and see them. But you know, I didn't really get to. That's talking about goals. If goals are gonna be meaningful to the person. Because Jayson said, you know, I just want to do my art. Then, you know, I saw him dressed up and I said, are you going to go somewhere? He said, no, we're having a party, a virtual party. And I said, oh, great. It's going to be in the room because I saw him all dressed up. And I said, wait a minute. Exactly. So that, you know, you pick activities that your child likes and that are interesting to him, like the other parent was saying, because, you know, goals, if they're meaningful to the person. But the good thing is with the art that, you know, that he's been able to do it here. Like I say, you break up that routine and do other stuff, you know, that might not be too pleasant, but it's part of life that they also have to learn. And at the same time, like I said, the activities, you know, you pick is what your child likes, and some of the materials, whatever you might need, if it's for art, you know, just try to see when they're on sale and get them like that. And then also, you know, getting into a little bit, you know, not too much deep into it, you know, talking about, you know, issues, you know, because it's been really hard, you know, we have lost family members and all that, and friends, you know, like Jason's close, you know, caretaker for many years that he still kept a relationship. But, you know, we talk about issues and feelings and things that, you know, are important to them. And then at the same time, like I said, having the art and the other activities in there, help through these times, so.
I think that's such an important point, and I think that's something that we haven't explicitly brought up on this call, is the fact that how art, just the creation and the making of it, is so therapeutic in nature, and it helps in terms of even your mental health. And if there are things that are going on, especially, and I'm so sorry to hear how the COVID has impacted your family, but even in ways of expressing that, so you don't keep all that stuff bottled up. I think Gloria, as a mom, I just really want to acknowledge you, and how much support that you're giving, and I think also just as importantly, like how you see the role of art and how valuable that is, and how it's so much more than just a painting, etc. But it's really like the opportunity to really get all of that stuff out, whatever it is that's blocking you, or whatever feelings that you have. It could be a poem, it could be a painting, and I think that you really, really understand that. And what I love is just your encouragement of that, and I think it's one of the I think most important components about art is it's sort of the therapeutic nature of just creation, and how that can also have such healing properties, and just the ability to make a painting or to make a drawing.
Like you said, it's a way of coping. Like some of the other little smaller sketches that he has, there's like going away, like rainbows and things that make you feel at peace and calm, to regulate yourself, and in a way, you're just not expressing it verbally, because some kids cannot express it verbally, but then through the art, and you really look at it, that's how a way of expression that's very therapeutic for them.
Beautiful, beautiful. Well, thank you guys so much. I so appreciate you guys sharing your stories and inviting us into your home. Please stick around. We're going to get to the Q&A, but give it up. Thank you so much. So I just want to move this along. Thank you, Jayson and Gloria. We want to open us up to some of the questions that we've been getting from our YouTube live feed. We have been getting some questions. Again, before we get to the Q&A, I just want to acknowledge and give it up to all of our incredible panelists. Please, virtual high fives all around. There were so many gems that were dropped in terms of how we can continue to incorporate art into our daily lives, and I love that we're hearing it direct from self-advocates and from organizations. It's so important to hear the struggle is real, but I also think that art is a real way to address those struggles, and I think it all kind of comes into the living room and what it is that we are doing in order to enable all of that creation to continue to happen and to encourage it to happen. So we're gonna head to our YouTube questions. I have a question from Logan Wellborn, who submitted a question on our YouTube Live. I think this could be for Constance and Jonathon. How can arts organizations best implement virtual programming for individuals in the ASD or intellectual and developmental disability community? I would like to open this up to Constance and to Jonathon. Would either of you like to answer? How can organizations like the ones that you work with best implement virtual programming? What's the best way of doing that?
Can you share my video, please? Sorry. Hi. We have one of the first things that we need to make sure is that people have the technology and that they need in order to do virtual programming, and then also Wi-Fi. And so we've brought people iPads, and we've provided resources through the Mayor's Office for People with Disabilities, for instance, on how to get free Wi-Fi. And then we've worked with people and their families or residences to practice using the different platforms. And we've created guides on accessible guides on how to use different devices and different platforms. Even some of these guides are basically visuals, like where if someone cannot read, they can still be able to utilize that platform, because they can just show the images show them what to do step by step. And also we developed social stories around, how sometimes technology fails, and that's okay. So those are some of the ways that we made platforms accessible for people.
That makes sense. That makes sense. Make sure that the people can access it. Make sure that they have internet connection. Make sure that they have a device. And I know the city has been doing a pretty decent job in making sure that, families can receive iPads from the DOE and that sort of thing. So I do see that there is some action being taken, and not just a lot of words when you hear, a lot of our politicians, et cetera, sort of addressing this issue. So, start baseline, start with the basics. I really appreciate that. Constance, did you have anything to share with regards to how to best implement virtual programming from an organization?
Yeah. I mean, from the Museum Art and Culture Consortium, we start early on to do a at-home page with a lot of links of different cultural institutions, so you can go to their website, and sometimes they're very general, because when we started was really the beginning. But we've been, the Museum Access Consortium have about 25 different cultural institutions, and I know most of those institutions are within the access program doing some programming and making sure that there's programming there, either on the website or they're sharing with the people who are going to the activity before and all that. So there is a lot happening, and we don't do the part that Jonathon is doing as much, because we are just a big group working with the cultural institution and not necessarily right away to the person with disability, but there's definitely things to do and follow up.
Great. And I know you just kind of touched a little bit on some of what MAC Access does. I'm sure there are a lot of cultural and museum partners, et cetera. Are there opportunities for people to access through MAC Access, maybe like virtual tours of museums and that sort of thing?
Yeah,
like
definitely. That's why,
okay,
if you go to the website, and I will give the link, the website, and then you go to the at-home page, definitely have links of, we have botanical gardens, the Marc Maurice dance class. I mean, there's music, theater, museums, the Met and MoMA doing some, like every day or every day, some, things that you can do. So there's a lot, and Marc Maurice's classes that you can follow and all that. So there is a lot of things happening and going on there, and some are more adapted than other ones, but they're there, and they're on our website.
Beautiful. Great. Well, thank you so much, Constance. Let's move along to our second question. It comes from Grady from our YouTube live feed, and I want to address this to Emanuel. Grady is asking, do you have any advice for someone who's recently discovered that they are part of the autism spectrum community and is going through the struggles of seeking a diagnosis as an adult and seeking community? So, Emanuel, I want to ask you, do you have any advice for someone who recently discovered they're part of this community and going through the struggles of it? Do you have any advice for this for Grady?
Well, I could talk about this from my own personal experiences, but I don't know how long that would take. But I would do but just in general, in terms of getting a diagnosis, I would tell them to do their best to go someplace where like they will actually get a diagnosis, and that they get some tests done, interviews, and take an IQ test, and that's what I did. I went to the Fever Autism Center in Mount Sinai in 2006, and that's when I found out that I was on the autistic spectrum. And in terms of getting resources, I would go to organizations which actually support autistic people, and I would also find support groups which would like help them be a part of it, and I also would have empathy for people who are trying to get a diagnosis, because sometimes it's not always easy to come up with a diagnosis, and it can be very frustrating. And I think that it would help, especially when times are tough, that these people receive empathy, because I think that's very important.
Yeah, no, I appreciate that. And thank you so much for those resources that you have shared. You know, unfortunately, this is going to be our last question, but I do want to open it up to, you know, Jayson and his mother before we wrap this up. And again, please check back on our website. We want to make sure that we can share all of these links and resources with all of our viewers. Thank you so much for all of your questions. And before we wrap up, I just again wanted to touch base with you, Jayson and Gloria. You know, do you have any advice for someone who's recently discovered that they're part of, you know, the autism spectrum community? Is there anything that you can share with this with Grady, who's asking, you know, some advice?
Well, usually, you know, during, you know, in the places where you're evaluated and they give the diagnosis, like either the hospitals or community-based agencies, you know, I always advise that it's always good to, you know, to seek in the agencies. They do have, you know, therapists that are available, and there's also group therapy, you know, so that you can communicate, you know, talk to other people about your feelings and about, you know, what is it, how you feel about, you know, the diagnosis, and other community-based agencies, like I said, that are available in the community that you could participate and you know, look for resources and share with other people, including like I said, you know, first of all, how you feel about, you know, the diagnosis and meeting with other people, getting therapy. It's not for everyone, you know, but it you know, it depends, you know, it could be individual, it could be group, and then those agencies guide you to other community-based agencies that are in the community, including a lot of people that wonder and say, well, when I finish, you know, high school, whatever, will I be able to go to college, whatever, you know. There are a lot of resources, including going to school, going to college.
Even I was thinking about going to college, and it takes a lot of paperwork.
Yeah. But, you know, there's a lot of resources, like I said.
Right.
And school-based resources too.
Yeah, I like what you're saying there, though. Like, just start with what's available to you. It could be at school, it could be at hospital where you're first diagnosed, and then based off of that, let that inform you of where you can get more specific resources to, you know, depending on, you know where you are. So I really appreciate that. I also wanted to touch base with Jonathon really quickly. I'd love to hear it from the organizational side as well. Jonathon, and this will be our last question before we wrap up. Thank you guys for submitting your questions. I wish we had more time. But Jonathon, again, do you have any advice for Grady? He recently discovered he's part of the community. He's going through some struggles. What advice can you give him?
Yeah, so there are so many different service providers and different types of programs, and it's about trying out different things and seeing what works for you particularly. The mayor's office for people with disabilities is a great resource because they have no bias. They serve the disability community at large, and they can give you some guidance, and they have a lot of online resources. You can call the larger agencies such as YAI, AHRC. There's some great organizations like JobPath, many others. And, you know, you can, in terms of, you know, actually qualifying for free services, there are some assessments that you'll need to go through, and those are provided for free through organizations. So, and it's funded by the Office for People with Developmental Disabilities. But we can provide in the follow-up, I can provide some guides that can be shared.
Beautiful, beautiful. Okay, great. Well, I guess what I'm picking up is that there's a ton out there. You know, there's a ton of resources out there, and I feel like it just has to get more and more specific to address your specific needs. But I think what is encouraging is that there's not only a ton out there, but a lot of those services are free as well. So thank you so much, Jonathon, for sharing that. And again, we're going to provide all of this information on our follow-up, and you can check up on our Facebook, Beat Global Facebook page. So we're going to wrap this up, ladies and gentlemen. Please, thank you so much, and give it up for yourselves. What an incredible group of incredible guests to join us on this first panel. And I want to thank all of our viewers and all of our supporters for joining us today. And again, if you missed anything or you want to watch this again, please, you know, a closed caption version will be available. Check back on the Beat Global Facebook page. So this one last call to action. It's really directed at you, all of our viewers and all the people who've been participating in this panel. And we want to open up the same sort of questions in order to get those suggestions from you directly. You know, the last call to action is really, please contact us and post and share how you have been integrating arts into your at-home routine. You know, we want to be a resource where people can understand, like, oh, this has worked for me, and I want to share it with you guys. Very similar to what all of our panelists have done on this discussion. But that is really the call to action. What's been working for you? What's been fun for you? What resources should people know about? What Zoom parties, you know, should people be tuning into? You know, so please post on our Facebook page, Beat Global Facebook. We'd love to hear those suggestions. You know, it's really going to be the most powerful suggestions if they come from you. So please go ahead and find us on Facebook, Beat Global, and share with us and the rest of the community what has been working. How are you integrating arts into your daily routine? So before wrapping this up, I just wanted to say thank you again to all of our panelists and everybody who's made this possible. And please continue to take care of yourselves and each other during this unprecedented time. Remember to make time for yourself to be creative, to make art, and no matter what format that looks like. I think, if anything, the pandemic has shown that more than anything, the world needs more love and appreciation. And I think you can do that through your music, your poetry, your dance moves, your visual masterpieces, all of that. I think this is the time to really engage and to provide a little bit of joy to yourself and for all of us. And with that, I want to say thank you again to all of our panelists and our viewers, our supporters. Thank you. Have a wonderful, safe, and healthy week. Take care of yourselves. Thank you so much, everybody.